Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Friday, December 4th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Amitha Sharma in for Maya Trabulsi. We began with breaking news. New county-wide COVID-19 numbers just released, and they are not good. They're record-breaking, in fact. For the first time, cases have topped 2,000 in one day, 2,039, to go along with 7 deaths. The staggering numbers come as Californians are being told to prepare for new restrictive stay-at-home orders. Here's KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman.
State officials are predicting a new regional stay-at-home order restricting outdoor dining will hit San Diego by next week. Our county is already in the state's most restrictive purple reopening tier, but this order would clamp down even further, prohibiting private gatherings of any size and closing businesses like salons and barbershops for at least 3 weeks.
Outdoor dining is curtailed by the governor's new stay-at-home order. We have to be creative in finding the other ways the city can be assistive on a local level.
A regional lockdown is triggered if and or when ICU availability in the Southern California region dips below 15%. But it's this regional grouping that some are concerned about. San Diego County is being lumped in with Imperial, Los Angeles, Orange, Riverside, and a handful of other Southern California counties.
I have not had the opportunity to discuss the reasoning behind this lumping together with the governor or his staff, and I would be interested to know more of the thought behind it. But on its face, I think what they're trying to say is that none of us are living in a siloed environment. We know here in San Diego County that we are welcoming and assisting residents from Imperial County because of their surge of cases and lack of medical infrastructure.
The county San Diego is being grouped in with are bringing our numbers down. Collectively, the state says as of Thursday, the Southern California region's ICU availability is around 20%. But that's lower than San Diego County's ICU availability, which is at 23%.
You look at the differences between our numbers and some of the other counties that we are collected with, it does invite questions.
A handful of Bay Area counties today said they will be implementing the state's regional stay-at-home order starting this weekend, saying aggressive action is needed to slow the virus's surge. Today, San Diego County officials said they had no plans to introduce a stay-at-home order early, and a Sheriff's Department spokesperson says with the looming restrictions, they don't have any plans for changes in enforcement or any increased patrols, saying that deputies will continue responding to complaints. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
The new stay-at-home order would not affect schools already open, and to help impacted business owners, the county has set aside $20 million in relief. For more information, go to kpbs.org. Winter Gardens Elementary School is closing down due to COVID-19 cases. Lakeside Union District officials confirmed there have been 12 positive cases over the past 2 weeks, prompting the shutdown until January 4th. Virtual learning will continue, but the school's ESS program will shut down. We're told students and staff who may have come in contact with those infected have been notified. As the coronavirus pandemic accelerates, job growth is slowing. President-elect Joe Biden is predicting the economic crisis will only get worse if Congress doesn't act quickly.
We're in a crisis. We need to come together as a nation. We need the Congress to act and act now. If Congress and President Trump fail to act by the end of December, 12 million Americans will lose their unemployment benefits they rely on. Merry Christmas.
A looming deadline seems to have sparked urgency for a relief bill on Capitol Hill. Karen Caifa has the latest from Washington.
As the number of new U.S. COVID cases and deaths spiked to new highs again Thursday, the economic outlook is sinking. The Labor Department says U.S. employers created just 245,000 jobs in November, well below what economists forecast, and a sharp drop-off from October.
The jobs report was super disappointing, but it was still a positive number. But the thing is that what's happening is that the cases have skyrocketed so much, we're above 200,000 a day.
Despite vaccines coming soon, millions of Americans can't see past the end of this month, anxious about whether Congress can strike a deal to extend pandemic protections like enhanced unemployment benefits and an evictions moratorium. Bipartisan talks more optimistic now than they were even on Monday.
Both sides have given and both sides have received. And neither has received everything, but both received much of what we think the American people need. If we can keep that balance, we'll get it through.
With lawmakers expected to work through the weekend to try to resolve big differences.
There is momentum with the action that the senators and House members in a bipartisan way have taken with them. It could provide meaningful relief for millions who are suffering.
They are hoping to get a deal and sign off on a spending bill to avert a government shutdown by the end of next week. In Washington, Karen Katha, KPBS News.
With a second federal economic relief package still in talks, some San Diego researchers say the last round of stimulus checks made people more likely to stay home. KPBS reporter Tanya Thorne has details.
As unemployment COVID bonuses were reduced and no second stimulus relief confirmed, many San Diegans have returned to work. A new report by UC San Diego says U.S. residents were more likely to follow public health guidelines when their households received stimulus funds.
People were more likely to comply with shelter-in-place orders, or at least move around a little less, if they had that extra financial security from the government.
The San Diego researchers worked with a team at the University of Chicago. They used cell phone data to see if communities were complying with the first stay-at-home orders. They found working-class families were less likely to stay home because they needed to leave the house for work.
The truth is that it is simply more difficult to shelter in place if you're living on the edge and you're going through hard times than if you have the disposable income to do what middle-class and upper-class people do, which is just stay home.
Once the stimulus payments went out, data showed a change.
We could also check to see whether their behaviors changed before and after the checks arrived. And that's where the study became really interesting and of more public policy relevance today.
While the CARES Act provided temporary relief for many families, Congress has yet to decide on a second round.
If there is no stimulus at all, the winter's going to be worse.
Driscoll says without a stimulus, more people will be out, possibly spreading the virus at a time when cases are already on the rise. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
A federal judge is ordering the Trump administration to open the DACA program to new applicants for the first time since 2017. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security was instructed to post a public notice by Monday that states it will process work permits for undocumented immigrants brought to the U.S. as children. It's estimated that 1 million teens and adults who are not currently enrolled in DACA are expected to qualify. In June, the Supreme Court ruled the Trump administration violated federal law when it attempted to end the program. The lights are coming back on in the East County. Right now, about 9,000 customers are still without power. SDG&E cut off power to tens of thousands of customers during the red flag warning. The utility says crews are conducting inspections to determine whether there was any wind-related damage, such as downed lines, debris, or tree branches, before power can be restored. After nearly 3 days without electricity, many people expressed frustration.
We have a freezer full of fish that my husband caught on a fishing trip, in the last year, and we hated for that to all get, spoiled.
SDG&E set up drive-through resource centers for those affected by the blackouts to pick up water and snacks or charge their devices. Gusty conditions have subsided for now, but high winds could make a comeback next week. Meteorologist Melissa Costanza has your forecast.
What a difference a day can make. We're not talking about the same winds that we were talking about through some of our mountainous terrain as we were yesterday. And guess what? That not so windy pattern continues into tomorrow. The bad news is, though, we're still staying dry. There's no sign of rain coming at any point in time. However, we will see those winds return Monday into Tuesday as we watch the next system trying to push in, which will bring us some clouds, but again, no rain. Across the county here, we've got a cooler pattern still in store for us. As you look, low tonight in Oceanside, 32 for that low. We're talking 19 in Mount Laguna. And as we push our way into Saturday, high pressure still in control across the southwest. It has weakened significantly, which means those offshore winds are not nearly as strong. So there's still fire danger because it's still dry across the area. Some of those canyons and passes certainly could have a little bit of a gusty time for some areas, but overall, the wind threat has died down, which means tomorrow's forecast looking pretty good for us. Temperatures hanging out in the 60s or 70s, depending on where you are. You can see Oceanside hitting 68 for that high, 69 in San Diego itself. So really, again, looking at some quieter conditions with the winds. That holds into Sunday, but then by Monday, here's the next storm system coming in from the Pacific. This doesn't bring us rain, but it does bring us a few clouds, and it tightens the pressure gradient between the high and the low. That means more winds come back into the forecast. So as we go through the weekend here, still dry, still bright, still quiet towards the coast. Monday and Tuesday, that's when we'll add some of those clouds. It should warm up towards the coast into Tuesday. Meanwhile, inland, we also have those extra clouds Monday and Tuesday, but a quiet set stretch to the weekend as highs stay in the 70s. And in the mountains, we'll notice some changes come Monday with those extra clouds a bit cooler back into the 50s here. And as we push our way then to the desert, we will find those numbers in the 70s. Again, changing times into Monday and Tuesday. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Melissa Constanzer.
The traditional December Nights Holiday Festival in Balboa Park is off this year, but there is a socially distanced food event taking its place. KPBS reporter John Carroll is live at Taste of December Nights. And John, you're also bringing us the second half of your series on how some of the park's cherished institutions are holding up during the pandemic, right?
That's right, Amitha. We'll get to that in a second. But, you know, the whole December Nights thing, it's been going on for more than 40 years now. But this year, not possible due to COVID. But the city wanted to do something. So they came up with this. They're calling this Taste of December Nights. People are driving through the big parking lot here at Inspiration Point. And here they can order from about 20 different food vendors. Now, usually the food is all handled by the folks from the International Cottages. And here they are. They are here this year selling holiday cookies from the various countries. And though the cottages are closed, they still have a lot going on. Balboa Park is many things. The jewel of San Diego is home to most of the city's museums. But in a transcendental sense, it is also a place of peace. It is the primary mission of the International Cottages to take the concept of peace and make it reality. The House of Pacific Relations is the umbrella group that oversees the cottages, Pacific, of course, meaning peace. Eugenie King is its vice president.
They are a jewel of the park. They are something to explore, to develop, to discover.
At some point in 2021, probably in the spring, visitors will discover new cottages, the first built in decades. Once complete, this cottage will be home to the houses of Mexico and Panama. This one, the House of the Philippines. Adjacent to the International Lawn, 6 other new houses, the countries of Korea, India, Peru, Turkey, and the cultures of Palestine and Chamorro, part of Guam in the Marianas Islands. The first cottages were built for 1935's California Pacific International Exposition, meant to foster a spirit of understanding, tolerance, and goodwill. There's no doubt that mission is still very much alive today, symbolized by the primary sponsor for the new House of Palestine.
The first vote to approve their membership and to recommend them for membership in the House of Pacific Relations was done by the House of Israel.
The international cottages are faring pretty well during the pandemic. The buildings are owned and maintained by the city's Parks and Recreation Department, and they're run entirely by volunteers. And though volunteers are an important part of just about every museum here, most rely on paid staff. Here at the Fleet Science Center, like everywhere else in the park, it's been a challenging year.
It has been a time of learning to adapt quickly to whatever comes our way.
The fleet is fortunate in one way. They are able to host what they call distance learning hubs, places where young children can come and learn about science in a COVID-safe way.
To come into the Fleet Science Center and do their online learning, as well as combined with science activities.
But like Balboa Park's other museums and attractions, such as the Spreckles organ concerts, the fleet has had to move whatever they could online. The essence of the museum experience, visiting in person, not available for now.
We haven't been able to have anyone in our galleries or in our theater, which was our #1 revenue generator. So we are relying a lot more on donations and grants and just people in general being generous.
With news that vaccines are on the way, Balboa Park's museums are eagerly looking toward the time they can reopen. When they do, changes in the way they do things brought on by COVID won't entirely disappear.
We're definitely going to keep doing things virtually. We have Fleet TV, which we started to keep engaging with their audiences online. However things change in the future, we're looking to adapt to whatever that looks like.
There are exciting things to look forward to. In addition to the new international cottages, the Comic-Con Museum is expected to open sometime next year. But for now, the outdoor pleasures of the park are still here. The buskers, the food vendors, the Japanese Friendship Garden has stayed open. Things to enjoy while we wait for the institutions that are so much a part of Balboa Park to once again open their doors. Taste of December Nights happens again tomorrow and Sunday from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. But one piece of advice, Eugenie King says, if you want some of these delicious international holiday cookies, you better get here before sunset because they go really fast. Live in the jewel of San Diego, Balboa Park, John Carroll, KPBS News.
Even when things are normal, high school seniors are stressed to the max in early December, studying for finals while also applying to colleges. KPBS education reporter Joe Hong spoke with students about how the pandemic has heightened anxieties.
Frank Gronda is a senior at Serra High School in San Diego's Tierra Santa neighborhood. He planned out his high school career so he'd be a competitive applicant to colleges and universities across the country. But after years of hard work, the pandemic has left him in a state of uncertainty.
Your grades are now muddled because of the grading system. It's changed abruptly. You can't, take the standardized testing. You can't take the SAT. You can't take the ACT. School won't provide you with that. And, your extracurricular activities, you have to adapt to the pandemic.
Meanwhile, college admissions officers are navigating their own uncertainty. The pandemic canceled all college visits and in-person tours. Stefan Hyman is the Associate Vice President of Enrollment Management at San Diego State University. He said the university has been holding virtual events for prospective students, but they fall short.
Actually being on a campus, it gives you that aha moment of this is the right place for me. And that's challenging for students. And we absolutely feel for students in terms of having to make a decision without necessarily having that kind of experience.
But with most universities making standardized tests optional this year, admissions officers must examine their applicants in a more holistic way, which they say is a change for the better. At the University of San Diego, the decision to not consider test scores seems to have led more students to apply.
This process is really about in a lot of ways, it's about relationship building.
Stephen Pultz is the Assistant Vice President for Enrollment at the University of San Diego.
To not really consider a test score at all has given students maybe made USD a more an option that they might have considered, either because they weren't able to take a test or they weren't satisfied with their score. So for all of those reasons, I think we were hopeful that we would see an uptick in applications, and in the early going, that certainly seems to be the case.
The application deadline for USD, San Diego State, and the entire Cal State system is December 15th. The deadline for the University of California system is today. Joe Hong, KPBS News.
1 month after the election, former State Senator Joel Anderson has officially won the District 2 County Supervisor seat. The Register of Voters completed and certified the results yesterday. Anderson defeated fellow Republican and Poway Mayor Steve Voss by 282 votes. It's the first time in 28 years that someone other than Diane Jacob will represent the East County District, and the board will have a Democrat majority for the first time in decades. San Diego lawyer Corey Briggs, who lost his bid to become city attorney last month, also just lost out on a major payday in a case involving the California Coastal Commission. iNews Source investigative reporter Jennifer Bowman explains.
A state appeals court last week reversed a nearly $1 million award in attorney fees for Corey Briggs. The case involved Coastal Commission members who violated state law by not disclosing private discussions with people who had business before the agency. The judges said Briggs's nonprofit client couldn't legally sue. That's because it didn't have a stake in 2 of its 3 claims. The court said the lawsuit was entirely focused on collecting money. The judges didn't address whether the coastal commissioners violated the law, but did overturn $57,000 in fines against them. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource investigative reporter Jennifer Bowman.
For more on this story, you can go to iNewsSource.org. iNewsSource is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS. As we mentioned, the November jobs report shows a slowdown in economic growth. SDSU's Mira Kopik takes an in-depth look in the Friday Business Report.
Ordinarily, adding 245,000 jobs during normal economic time is a great month, but you saw a 60% drop in jobs added from last month to 245,000 jobs. So the unemployment rate ticked down to 6.7%. And the bigger issue is that now 40% of those unemployed have been unemployed for 6 months or longer. This means that those individuals stop receiving state benefits, and with federal benefits running out at the end of December, this is going to be a dire situation for these families. There's a big push to have a relief bill. Many of them are hoping that they could tack it onto the government spending bill that needs to be passed by next Friday, or on top of everything else that the government can shut down if that spending bill isn't passed by next Friday. So there's a lot of activity there now, which will grant a lot of help to those individuals who are now losing benefits going forward, and actually new aid to small business.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, feeling the pain. As COVID cases spike, the economic costs worsen for millions of U.S. families. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
2 U.S. pharmacy chains are preparing to give out COVID vaccines as soon as there's a green light from the FDA. Mandy Gaither has more on how that distribution will work.
Healthcare workers and long-term care facility residents are set to get the first COVID vaccinations in the U.S.
Our plan is to be ready to go as early as December 15th, waiting for the state approvals.
In October, the Trump administration announced agreements with CVS and Walgreens to vaccinate residents of long-term care facilities nationwide. The pharmacy chains already have a list of those organizations, says Dr. Troy Brennan, Chief Medical Officer for CVS Health.
We've basically got 31,000 locations where we're going to have to be doing the vaccination, and that's about 2 million patients. So we know who it is, where they are, and how many patients there are.
CVS plans to send teams to each of the facilities 3 times in the coming months. A team will consist of 2 vaccinators and 1 support staffer on average. Brennan says they're already working out details for vaccine distribution within each state and looking ahead.
Once we get into sort of general distribution, I suspect that not only ourselves and Walgreens, but there's going to be a number of other pharmacy chains and grocers who will be involved in it. And I think that using all those various outlets, we're going to have very good penetration across the United States. You'll get an appointment for both your first vaccination, your second vaccination, and then we will keep after you to make sure you come back for that second vaccination.
For today's Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
The United States Post Office's Operation Santa program is spreading holiday cheer for the 108th year. You can visit the USPS website to read through letters from children and families. Once you find a letter that speaks to you, you can purchase gifts, wrap them, and take them to your local post office. Santa's helpers handle it from there. And there's still time for families in need to sign up. Letters will be accepted through December 15th. If you're looking for something to watch that's not full of holiday cheer, KPBS film critic Beth Accomando has a few suggestions for some diverse streaming options.
I have a confession. During the holidays, I need an antidote to all the holiday cheer. And this year, the streaming horror channel Shudder has the perfect option in its holly, gialli Christmas programming. Gialli is plural for giallo, the name used to define an Italian film genre which peaked in the 1970s. The word literally means yellow, the color that identified the cheap paperback crime thrillers that inspired the film genre. Films like Deep Red, directed by Dario Argento, embellish the pulpy literary tales with an audacious visual style and pulsating soundtrack that consumed you like a fever dream. Murder is often at the center of these stories, but don't waste your time trying to figure out who done it, because the plot is more like an afterthought in these films that drip with an intoxicating style. Style is content here, so you can resist, or you can simply succumb to this assault on your senses and enjoy the perverse pleasures of Italian giallo cinema. But if you prefer a more realistic narrative, Riz Ahmed delivers a stellar performance as a musician who loses his hearing in Sound of Metal.
Your hearing is deteriorating rapidly.
The film, now streaming on Amazon Prime Video, uses an effective sound design to let us hear the world from the character's ever-changing audio perspective. It's a film worth listening to. And if documentary is more to your taste, then you can support the Digital Gym Cinema by buying a virtual ticket to 76 Days. The documentary played at the San Diego Asian Film Festival and is an intense and intimate portrait of frontline health workers treating COVID-19 patients in the 76 days that Wuhan was locked down. The film is a testament to the courage, ingenuity, and compassion of these frontline workers. So plenty to choose from as we head toward the holidays. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us and have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.